This thing looks phenomenal. They sat down with just about everybody. We have Lauren Stowell, lead director, joining us, 7-time Emmy winner. We have Gabe Honig as well, and he is the lead showrunner on this documentary series. Can't wait to talk to them in just seconds. Check out this preview.
I think there's something for everyone in this film. Whether you're a diehard fan, whether you love Boston, hate Boston, love the Celtics, hate the Celtics, I think that we were able to, with the 9 hours that we had, the real estate, the canvas that we were able to paint with, we're able to tell so many incredible stories and just a larger story about America, about Boston, about this team and what it means to the city, to history, and to America. So there's a lot.
The Celtics story is one that everybody thinks they know, but you haven't seen it like this before.
Oh, how good is this? That looks phenomenal. Lauren and Gabe join us now. Hi, everybody. How we doing? Lauren, how are you?
I'm doing so well. So happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, our pleasure. This is exciting as well. Gabe, how you doing? How you feeling, buddy?
I feel good, man. Let's get this thing on the air tomorrow night, huh?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure this has been a long time coming for you both. The Celtics obviously win a NBA championship at NBA Finals back in June. How long before that was this thing in the works? Because you couldn't have timed it out any better that you're releasing a 9-parter, and the Celtics are defending champs. Lauren, when did this start coming across your desk?
Yeah, it was really at the end of 2022. I had a conversation with Connor Shell and obviously Bill Simmons. This was an idea that they had been, talking about and developing really since 2020. So when they approached me about the opportunity to direct this and, 9 parts, 9 hours of definitive history, I was thrilled. I immediately brought Gabe into the fold. We started talking. He had just finished The Captain, so he was no stranger to multi-part series. And yeah, I mean, we were thrilled. The treatment, I read the initial treatment. I was just blown away. It read like a Hollywood story. There's just so many layers to the Boston Celtics, the city of Boston, the ties to American history. So we started production in 2023. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Timing could not be better. Gabe, you had such an interesting comment in that little teaser, and that was everybody thinks they know the story of the Celtics, but they really don't. Okay, what did you mean by that?
A couple things. Number one is that, there's been a bunch of docs about different parts of Celtic history. But when you put the story all together, there's these common themes, these common ties. But really what I mean is that, no filmmaker has ever told the story of the Celtics through the people who actually did it, the people who were the Celtics, who made up the Celtics. And I think that's what this stands this series apart from all the other stories, is that it's not what happened, it's why, who did it, what were their motivations, the human story behind the basketball story.
Lauren, you said this is about how the Celtics represent American history. And I think the greatest documentaries have always been, especially for sports, ones that don't just focus on the games themselves, the box scores, but how it ties into society, cities, culture, history, etc. So that's a really enticing catch for me, a hook for me on this type of series. How does the Celtics and the story that you told reflect American history?
Yeah, I mean, right from the initial foundation of the organization, Red Auerbach, Bill Russell, obviously, when we started to really look at that formative history, the foundational history of the organization, I didn't know that the Celtics drafted the first Black player in 1950 in Chuck Cooper. I didn't know that they had the first Black head coach in professional North American sports in Bill Russell, player coach. I didn't know they had the first Black starting 5 in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. And that's something that I think we knew. And as a team, we talked about, you can really trace, the lineage of the NBA from 1950 to current, when Red took the job, to the 18th championship. You can trace the history of Black empowerment and the Black American story through the Boston Celtics. So really, we were looking at not just the city, but some of these like really, really important societal kind of milestones that the organization had that really weren't as widely publicized and widely known and talked about. And I think that's really where we started, Damon. Like we started with that kind of foundational history with those two men, what they stood for, their character, their ethos. And then we traced that. And we tried to look at that lineage of like the DNA that we found through every player who talked about that foundation being meaningful. I mean, up to Jaylen Brown. I mean, he really has a deep reverence for that, for those, you know, those milestones and for what the organization represents.
There are so many incredible characters in Celtics history, but then also the flip side, the antagonists of the Celtics, whether that was your favorite team or somebody else's favorite team or most hated team, but it's the Lakers, it's the Sixers, it's the Knicks, it's all of these tremendous, you know, kind of like counterbalances to what the Celtics were. And one of the great characters is Rick Pitino. Now I saw the trailer. Pitino's in it. Gabe, was Pitino tough to sell to get to do this doc, or was he okay in doing it and he accepted his role in the history of this thing?
Yeah, we interviewed Pitino late in the game. I'll just say that it took a little while to get him in the chair, but once we did, I mean, he owns his role in Celtic history, which you'll see it in episode 7 and 8. He doesn't admit to doing much to help the Celtics with their ultimate goal, which is putting up a banner. But no, I mean, that was one of those moments where we're like, okay, how is this going to go? Pitino spoke his truth.
Lauren, there is a part in the trailer where it hones in on the racial divide that happened in Boston in the 1960s, 1970s. I lived and worked in Boston for a number of years, working on the sports radio side of things at 98.5 The Sports Hub. And so I began to realize how complicated the whole thing is, and redlining and busing and all these types of things that happen in Boston. And there's that, that picture that is ingrained in everybody's mind of, a man wielding an American flag as a weapon in the middle of a crowd. And there is a moment where ML Carr catches himself, and he's very emotional, catches himself in that trailer. Tell us about how the story of race weaves in here and how personal and emotional it must be for a guy like ML Carr, and certainly was for Bill Russell, because his relationship was extremely complicated with the city.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the kind of essential questions that our team was very interested in unpacking and exploring in this film was the perception and the reputation of Boston being a, quote, racist city. That is something that we had read about, heard about, it's spoken about, whispered about, that it's not a friendly place for Black people in Boston. That's something that we really didn't understand. Obviously, I'm from New England, but I can't claim to live in Boston. I didn't really understand where the origin of that came from. And I think that was something that we asked every person that we interviewed. It was something that, we really wanted to understand. And it was interesting that the response from people was really focusing on that time period, Damon. It was that time of busing in the 1970s, the images that were broadcast around the nation, around the world, and specifically that image that you were talking about came up multiple times with people that we talked to, who they could describe the image, didn't know who the people in the photo were. And we did. We had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Ted Landsmark. He's the gentleman in the photo who's being attacked on City Hall Plaza, and he's a huge Celtics fan. And just being able to understand how that history impacted the perception of what the city, the city's kind of complicated history of race relations is really through that moment, I think, on a national stage. It's what we found. Obviously, we didn't have all the answers, but we were, and you will see in the 9 hours that we do try to unpack why there is that perception. And is it fair? Is it earned? Is it unfair? Those are questions that we asked ourselves, and then we turned onto our interview subjects, which was really, really impactful.
One thing right now that is doing very well on social media is Larry Bird stories. There's Larry Bird war stories of guys that played against him that are like, yeah, he told me exactly what he was going to do, and then he did it. And you just hear time and time again, it never gets sick. So, Gabe, how many good Larry Bird stories do we get out of this 9-part doc?
There are a lot of very good Larry Bird stories, and there are a lot of interesting comments about Larry Bird, the teammate, and Larry Bird, the opponent. Yeah, I mean, James Worthy, has a laugh out loud moment in reference to Mr. Bird, and his teammates talk about him very openly. But, getting Larry for this was like that, we couldn't do this without a new Larry Bird interview. We got him, and he told stories that, Jackie McMullen was the consulting producer for us. She did the Bird interview. She was able to get him to sit for us. And after the interview, she was like, I'd never heard him talk about that kind of stuff before.
Wow.
Especially towards the, Larry opened up a lot about the ending of his career. And that was the stuff that we found really interesting. Obviously, there's all those great highlights. He's been on the record talking about those things. But the end of his career is, he shared some things with us that Jackie had never really heard before.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, this is going to be a 9-part doc, and it's going to be released weekly through the end of April. So it follows that cadence of The Last Dance. Today, you could drop every single episode at the same time, and then everybody could binge it. But you guys decided against that. Lauren, tell us why you wanted to play this week by week over the course of a number of weeks.
Well, I mean, we fully trust, and believe in everything that HBO has kind of put behind this. They've been incredibly supportive and just like pushing this on every platform that you could imagine. And I think, I'm excited that people are going to be able to watch this one episode after the other. I think, this isn't an anthology. It was always a story from beginning to end for us and for our team. We wanted to weave and harken back to these themes that we established early in the first few episodes that really do pay off and resonate. You get to live and experience these characters throughout the 9 hours. Red and Bill, Kuzi, they never disappear. They come back in ways that are expected and some very unexpected. So I'm really, really thrilled that we're able to share it in a way that we created it to be shared, one, leading to the next. So we're really excited about it.
But so we won't be able to binge all 9 episodes tomorrow when it's released, right?
You will not. No, it will be one every Monday at 9 Eastern. And yeah, for like you said, it will be 9 weeks and culminating on April 28th, and then they'll be all available. So you can wait if you'd rather, pick your episodes, but
I'm a fan of this. I'm a fan of this, the way that it is. I thought the way that The Last Dance sucks you in, it leaves you with a week of conjecture, a week of analysis, a week of thinking about it. I think that's a really valuable and impactful way to do this. So I'm glad you guys are doing it this way. I just think it's really effective, especially in the sports world where we get into the rhythm and cadence of event happens, talk about it, analyze it, think about what's going to happen next, then watch the next. It's not like we watch a full NBA season in 2 nights. It has to carry out over the course of weeks, months, etc. So I like that it's going down like this. Gabe, I want to know, what's a story or a character, maybe a player, a coach, a character that you're going to tell our audience, you might not have seen this coming, but you're going to love this person. This person tells a great story, or I didn't see this person being such a big part of the story that's being told.
Robert Parrish. Growing up in the 80s as a New York Knicks fan, I had a perception of Robert Parrish. He was very, straight-faced and didn't show a lot of emotion. And, talking to Celtic fans, they never really got to know him. And he admits that. He admits he did that by design. And in the 3-hour plus interview that he did for us, Lauren and I were sitting there with our fists on our mouth at times, trying not to laugh. The guy is an amazing human being, really entertaining, really spoke from his heart, and was able to contextualize things and bring us into that locker room in a way that was truly an amazing surprise for us.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about a lot of Johnny Most as well. I assume there's a lot of good Johnny Most cigar smoking, gravelly play-by-play and stories, right? I mean, Laura, that's got to be in this thing as well.
Yes, gear up for a lot of John Most. Yes,
Love
it's
it.
great.
I love
Classic.
this.
Yes.
Celtics City is a 9-part doc, hour by hour, starting tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Pacific, on HBO and streaming on Max. I can't wait for this. I'm super excited. I think everybody's going to really get a kick out of this. And I can't wait to talk about it on this show and on Sirius XM as well in the mornings after these things air. So this is really cool. Lauren Stowell is the lead director. She's a 7-time Emmy Award winner. So Lauren, congratulations on all of the success. Thank you so much for carving out time for us tonight. This is really, really cool. I know the audience is super thrilled to have you guys here. And Gabe is the lead showrunner as well, Gabe Honig. And unbelievably, Gabe's mom and my mom go way, way back. They're old school friends. Had no idea Gabe was working on this. Comes across my desk. It's like, oh, and by the way, your moms know each other for like 30 years. I'm like, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable. So, Gabe, it is so good to have you here on the show, man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be in touch after this. Lauren and Gabe, congratulations on this thing. I can't wait to watch it. I appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you so much for having us.
Our pleasure. Lauren Stowell and Gabe Honig joining us from Celtics City here on the show. And